my first criteria for how I evaluate a superhero movie is how closely does this guy or woman on the screen resemble who is in the comic book? And that's why Superman, the movie, I mean, Chris Reeve stepped literally right out of the comic book. I look at, Henry Cavill, and I'm like, you don't even have an S curl, dude. You know?
Well, he does kind of like Superman, does he now? Looks like he's like New 52 Superman. That's New 52 Superman.
And I think that was by design.
Yeah.
And the colors were so muted. It's like, no, you can do Batman in this darkness and the shadows and all that. No, Superman is bright, and he's in the sun and the sky and the clouds, and you have to embrace that if you're doing that character. And I just feel like whoever they have signed on to do some of these movies, whether it's Nolan, I know Nolan made a crap load full of money for him on Batman, but you have got to get the fundamental nature of who these characters are. If these things are, and hey, they've been publishing them for all these years. I mean, comics versus the different genres, had gone through cycles. The superhero thing just never ended. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's got to be a reason for that. I mean, it touched something. What Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster created with Superman touched something in the audience that persists to this instant. And if you accept that and embrace that, that's what modern audiences, how well you put that on the screen, that's what modern audiences are going to respond to. But
you can hear people right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to jump forward a little bit. Actually, I wanted to find out, what is your, like from each of you, what is your favorite Marvel film? You can only choose one. What is your favorite Marvel film right now?
Oh wait, the new ones?
No, it can actually be Marvel proper. It can be like, the stuff that preceded that, like whatever you want to do.
Okay, wait. Our favorite one, or what we think is the best one?
That's up to you. It's up to you. But you only get to choose one.
All right, I got one.
I'll let you guys think about it.
I got one. Spider-Man 2.
Okay. That's actually that's a critical favorite. Like, I'm actually surprised how often critics reference that.
Yo.
It was like the favorite until Dark.
James Franco is the GOAT, Harry Osborn. The GOAT. Nobody will top him.
How many of you guys think Spider-Man 2 is like the best one that's been made so far? A few people.
It was very, very good. I tell you what, that scene, because that was what comic book action is all about. That scene where Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man are fighting on the elevated train, on the side of the elevated train. I mean, I'm looking at that, and my only problem with that is, to read comic books requires some imagination. You're looking at the beautiful illustrations that John Romita or Ross Andrew or whomever has done, and you have to imagine these characters moving. I mean, you just sit back in the movies and they show you, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, well, yeah, this is why Spider-Man is so exciting. I mean, this is really cool. No, but what I think my favorite Marvel movie to date is Iron Man. The first one. I mean, that happens to be number 2 on my list of greatest comic book adaptations of all time, because the character looked like the character was supposed to be, and the story came right out of the comic books. And it was such a compelling story about, this guy who was a munitions maker, but he has this life-changing event, and all of a sudden he sees things differently. I mean, it was a real good story. It was transformative. And it was very well done, and that's my favorite.
I listened to actually a really great interview with the screenwriters where they explained that after kind of like hitting their head against the wall trying to make the script work, one of the things that they pointed out was that finally the way that they kind of got to the essence of the characters, they realized that this is a story about a man finding his heart, literally, figuratively. And I really love that they it took them some time to kind of get to that point, and then they nailed it. I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. Alex, what was your favorite?
I would probably have to go with the Avengers, if only because there was so much in the way of payoff that came in that film, and as a fan, it was just so rewarding. I had a heck of a fun time watching that film. Now, I will not say that one is the best, however, but if we're saying what is my favorite, it was definitely the Avengers. So.
What about you, Jerry?
I'd say Avengers is the best so far, because it touches on everything, but my favorite would be Captain America, the first Avenger.
Hey, wait. He said 2 movies.
Actually, let me ask the audience here, actually, guys. Like, just show of hands. Like, how many of you think that Iron Man is the best one?
Oh.
Okay. What about Iron Man 2? Nobody.
I like that movie.
Let me tell you something. Iron Man 2 had a great scene in it. I mean, there were a bunch of great scenes, but I was screaming in the theater, when Whiplash / Crimson Dynamo, the track in Monaco, and he turned on his suit, and the coverall started burning all above him. I was like,
For me, it was drunk from the start. Like, that was great.
Well,
That's the essence of character right there.
how many people think that actually nobody mentioned on the panel? How many think that Thor is actually the best Marvel film?
Yo, Thor is kind of fantastic.
What about Captain America, the first Avenger?
I love that. This guy too, the hands was like, why you get my arm any higher?
Like, for me, going back to the Captain America, going back to what Ulysses was saying about the origin story and everything, how that's the essence of the character. When Steve Rogers starts running down the street, and he's not even in his costume, but he's chasing the bad guy down the street, I thought I was going to start crying. Because it was like, this is Captain America. I get to see him on screen, and they're doing it the right way. Everything up until that point. And then the Red Skull was just, Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull was just amazing casting. He did so great, and it was a great bad guy.
Oh, and that was all brilliant. I mean, and you're dead on about that story because that was the origin of Captain America. The other thing I liked about that was, I always forget the actor's name who played Professor Erskine. Well,
Yeah, Stanley Tucci.
Mr. Tucci was absolutely fabulous, and I liked how in his death scene he didn't get to say anything. He just pointed, and I was like, oh, that was so powerful, and so I was overwhelmed by that, and I was on the way to see that with my son, and I was telling him, I said, son, you have never seen a character as good as Captain America. The only one I can think of, like that Superman, Superman the movie, as he was just so good. I said, we've never, up till now, in all these movies they've done, there's never been a character who is as good as Captain America or as evil as the Red Skull, because that was another, this guy was just pure evil, and Hugo Weaving, wove that.
And just to throw something else in there, one thing that I really enjoyed about the first Captain America was they made it also into a World War II film. Yeah. And they embraced that part. It wasn't just like, oh, this is a superhero film and we kind of have to follow those tropes. Like, we can actually embrace the fact that this is also something else. And they did that very well, I thought.
Yeah. I don't think Marvel gets enough credit for that. I think people only now with the Winter Soldier are starting to see that these are genres within genres. And that's what the comics are. They are they're by default superheroes. But in order for them to maintain the audience's interest for so long, they have to be other genres. And I think that actually Winter Soldier is probably the best representation of that. But I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan, so I'm right there with you guys by Captain America. The closest I've gotten to Indiana Jones, no thanks to Indiana Jones 4.
I like that movie.
I want to make one other point about the period pieces, because I thought that it was brilliant to make Captain America the First Avenger a period piece. And that has been my only issue so far with the various Fantastic Four movies that have been made, because the Fantastic Four should be, one of the better comic book movies that you would see, but efforts to make that contemporary are where it fails. These characters, you got to make Fantastic Four as a period piece. It's got to be 1961, and the whole focus of it is, we're trying to beat the communists into space. Fantastic Four is about American exceptionalism. And Reed and Ben were World War II era guys. Johnny was a James Dean, rocker type. Okay, making him into a grunge guy, I accepted that, but
Grunge is kind of 20 years too early. Like that's old right now.
Well, I'm sorry, like I said, I'm the old guy, but I wish they would do that one right, because Fantastic Four could be. They're never going to get the rights back to it, but that could be a really fabulous. Marvel has the rights back to Fantastic Four.
No, they don't.
Jeez, don't get me excited.
They just got a casting list. They're all young.
Well, and I heard there may be some problems with that too, because I know they had the film casting, then they had like Kate Mara as Sue, and I'm like, what?
I'm sorry, I cannot see this in this film. I'm sorry.
Well, actress, but I didn't see her as Sue either. But then I heard they were shopping for a new director, but then they were saying, no, we're dedicated to this director, but then it's like, well, okay, but then why are you shopping for another director? I don't know that was actually going to be made.
And it sounded like a catastrophe.
How many of you guys are actually looking forward to this new Fantastic Four? I know we're bad mouthing, but anybody? A couple of people, okay.
They'll probably tie it to X-Men. It'll be all right.
I'll pay my money to go see it.
Well, you know, honestly, that's kind of all they care about, I'm sure. One of the things you mentioned, actually, the villains in the film, one of the criticisms I've actually heard pretty frequently about the Marvel movies, at least Marvel proper, is actually that they have weak villains. And
They do.
Conventional thinking is actually that in order for these movies to work, in order for most stories, I guess, to work, you have to have a exceptional villain and the hero's kind of secondary. Like, I don't know, like, do you guys agree with that at all?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Yeah. That's why Loki stands out so much, because he's really, really, really good. So, like, the dude in the first Iron Man was weak. Cause sorry, I call Bridges the dude forever. Yeah, Crimson Dynamo, Whiplash, and Iron Man 2. Even though I like that movie, he was weak. Red Skull is kind of cool. He was Red Skull, like.
You can leave him alone, you can just show up.
Yeah, it's like I'm kind of used to him being like a bad guy. He's not, you know,
trust him in Lord of the Rings.
he's not Agent Smith level in that movie, but he's pretty good. But for the most part, like Loki's the guy. So hopefully everybody gets pleased when they see Ultron or something. Because for me, I'm not saying it anyway, but
I think that could be a necessity almost, like, because they're sort of flipping it around, right? Like they have these heroes that are going to be around for a while. You need to emphasize the hero in that sense, and you know, I sort of agree the villains are weak in most cases. That's why, like Captain America, you have the Red Skull and what he represents and everything. But the villain shows up for one movie. You got to have Captain America or Thor or Chris Pratt and Star-Lord around for 3, 4, 9 films. So it does sort of flip around the whole dynamic in that sense, and how you need to emphasize.
But see, that's why I think they transformed Hydra into sort of a villain, or the ongoing villain, at least for a while now, especially if you look at Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's more of a faceless villain, and it could be anyone to a point. So that's another way to express that as an organization.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here again a little bit, because I think that I don't disagree exactly with what you all have said, but I think that what's key seems to be the actor or actress who has been selected to play a particular role. And you know, Loki would have been a very different character had it not been, you know, for Tom Hiddleston and his characterization of that, you know. So as I look at some other, because there are some villains, you know, who are actually, you know, not bad villains, but you know, maybe they just didn't get the right person to play them, or some villains who were, all right, well, maybe you're kind of, you know, middling, but oh wow, you know, somebody knocked it out of the park. But and neither of the examples that I can give are exactly like that, but some of the villainous performances that have stood out for me through some of the superhero movies. You know, I love what Jack Nicholson did as the Joker in, you know, the Michael Keaton Batman movie. I just thought that was like, wow. In fact, at the time, people were saying, well, this movie could have been called The Joker instead of Batman. And also Gene Hackman's performance in Superman, you know, because he was so over the top with that, they kept bringing him back, you know. Oh, and Terrence Stamp as General Zod. You know, I mean, that was like, whoa, you know.
And that DT stuff, this is a Marvel.
Well, but he has the question about villains, so,
But that's a
yeah.
good point.
But you guys talk about Marvel villains, how they get improved. That's the only thing DT's getting right is the villains, it sounds like. He has the market on good villains.
Well, let me ask you guys, actually, like, just show of hands, like, how many do you think that, like Loki is actually, like, the premier villain, like, it's like the best villain that they put together on screen with Marvel proper, Marvel Studios.
Right now, yeah.
Thanos like they're setting him up.
Thanos has potential, right?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how they handle Ultron, you know, they set it up.
What about Winter Soldier?
He didn't get enough time.
But wait, is he a villain?
Well, I mean, he's much a villain as Loki.
He's an antagonist. I wouldn't call him a villain.
The character, so is Loki.
Like Loki's is kind of bad at all of
Don't
them.
the room, guys. Don't be shy. You are once friends.
The Winter Soldier, like, really, he wasn't really the villain. Like, Hydra was the villain. Like, the organization.
But did Hydra have a face?
He was a personification of the organization. Like, he was the only thing that was a threat. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't about Cap, Scarlet, and except for him. Yeah.
No, Adam Pierce was.
What about with Iron Man 3, where they did the huge rope of it?
Man, that made me mad.
Actually, I was gonna get to that.
That made me so mad, yo.
Oh, spoilers ahead.
So mad.
Well, actually, yeah. Wait. That pissed me off. Seriously.
Well, actually, let me address this to everybody, actually, because, like, do you guys really think they should be married to the continuity? Because that's ultimately what this argument is about. Like, should they, like, stick to their guns about, like, you know, representing these characters as they are in the comics, or are they allowed to deviate?
Wait a minute.
I just.
I got a spoiler. Has anybody gotten their hands on the Blu-ray version of Thor 2?
Oh,
Has
about
anybody seen the
the,
new mini
one shot.
film?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the new one shot.
At the end, yeah.
They're bringing back the Mandarin, and I think probably more what he was in the comics instead of.
So,
I heard it was more of a praise to the fans, because a lot of fans wrote to Marvel and said, we hated what you did to Mandarin. So that's why they made the one shot saying, okay, he's kind of out there, we don't want to piss you guys off and not come to our movie. So there you go. So that's why they did that.
I just wanted some rings. I just wanted some rings.
I think actually my own personal conspiracy theory is like there was a lot of push to kind of get Iron Man 3 in China. And I do think that was a little bit of, like, it's valid, but I think that was a bit of a politically
But
correct
then
thing.
they changed it in China to Mandarin. Like, seriously, they changed it that way to not offend the Chinese, but at the same time, they had it was weird.
I'm sorry, so look at that.
I just wanted to say, I think that's kind of a false dilemma that we've got here, because there's a lot you can do to sort of revamp and remake a character and still be true to the original spirit. Because when you look at the previews for Iron Man 3 and sort of the Mandarin as, no, he doesn't have these magical 10-ring superpower blasts, but he's still a sinister, villainous, mastermind kind of guy who's leading this organization. I think that was still true to the original character while still being, you know, different and something that we haven't seen from a superhero in their movie.
There's a lot of Bin Laden allegory to that, actually, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I didn't really like that, but I just wanted to see some rings. I just wanted to just.
Like, if you look at the first Iron Man movie, like when they have Tony like just sitting back, chilling in the cave, like you can see the same 10-ring picture that they showed in Iron Man 3. Just kind of, I mean, it all ties together. It's just, you know, nobody would necessarily expect it.
Thank you for the young lady who actually brought up the, was it All Hail the King? Is it short film?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because that was pretty slick. I was like, man, I didn't expect them to actually, like, they backpedaled, but they did it in the coolest way possible.
I got to see that because, I mean, you got Sir Ben Kingsley. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, Sir Ben, oh my God. You know? And then he's like, let's trouble. That's funny.
I like that part.
Yeah, it's a funny joke on us. You know? I mean, I was looking forward to this.
I paid $10 to watch the Mandarin.
No, and
I paid
Iron
$10
Man.
to watch the
Yeah, well, yeah, you gotta appreciate it. Iron Man is my favorite Marvel character, okay? I mean, really, you know, so I was like, oh man, this is gonna be great. Mandarin's gonna have the rings, and it's gonna be like an all-out fight between Iron Man and Mandarin, and then it wasn't even close. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I was actually fine with the switch. I just wanted somebody with 10 rings. Like this, because to be honest, this is not everybody's thing, but all right, the old Fu Manchu style Mandarin, people can take offense, especially when they're paying for half the movie. You don't put that in the movie, and then maybe you don't want him to look like Bin Laden, because there might be like groups of people to be like, yo, why we gotta be like the stereotypical bad guy like that? making homeboy extremists. I just wanted some rings. That's all I need. You could be Mandarin. Give me the rings, the light ring, the space ring, the freeze ring, the hot ring. Just give me some rings. You got to do it in like 842 metal suits flying around, robot life. You can't give me some rings in this dog? Come on. You got aim and you can't give me some rings. Come on, man. Yeah, I ain't even gonna see that movie. I done told y'all I retired. I'm good, man. I ain't even gonna see the Gauntlet movie.
Yes, sir.
I kind of think it's a slow stroke. It's kind of visual foreplay. You want, as a comic fan, you want to see the guy with 10 rings, right? But you think of it from, I'm a comic fan, but I'm taking my children and or my girlfriend who does not give a damn about comic books, who wants to see something that she believes. And when I say visual foreplay, let's take for example, Ultron is coming. We know what Ultron is coming, right? And we all know who Ultron is, right? But to the non-comic fan, they need to be slow stroked into it. So they see Captain America on the shoulder. So in their brain they're thinking, okay, I can believe that a brain can be put into a computer. So that the next movie comes out, I see that there is this walking AI or whatever, and I'm not just hitting the face with and just said, this is it, go run with it. So for them to say that the Mandarin is this faceless, just black cloud that has this controlling thing that you can go back to the DVDs and see in Iron Man 1. Hey, wait a minute, his side is in the background. And you can put together with one shots for the non-fans. And there really is a dude with 10 rings. I mean, the visual is there, counting, 10 rings on his logo. So when it's actually there, even though it is a back pedal, it works. The non-fan can go, oh, this wasn't just force-fed to me. It was carefully and methodically thought out.
Oh, I just think they executed it poorly. To be honest, like this is my fine point. It's like I want to see 10 rings, but I just think Iron Man 3 is executed like a poor film. It was just a poor film.
I think they're literally building the marketing into the movies in that sense, because teaching people about a character, that's marketing. A trailer for a movie, that's world building, character introduction right there. And in this case, they're just sandwiching it into the film itself. And it's part of the genius of what they're doing. They just leave these eggs or seeds and then they sprout.
And that's where we've gotten Thanos and some of the Infinity Gems so far. It's planted those ideas very early on, so that when they finally break them, we have been expecting this now for how many movies? Like in Captain America, The Avengers, Thor 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy now. So.
Yes, sir. After being on X-Men franchises, I think you have to somewhat stay true to the source material, because I don't know how everybody else, but they have demolished the whole X-Men franchise as far as I'm concerned.
They are going to erase everything with the new Days of Future Past.
That's sadly sad. We hope they do that and they're like, okay, everything we did in the last 15 years. Not everybody realizes this, but the first X-Men movie came out in 1999. It's been 15 years they've been messing it up.
And only now that Hugh Jackman starts to look like a woman.
Yeah, it's been 15 years.
He's my
I was
dude.
in high school when this came out, and I'm still like, you're not getting it right yet. Please keep it trying. But they're never going to give it back to Marvel, ever.
Are you guys actually looking forward to Days of Future Past?
Oh, I am. I still am. I still am. I'm gonna have it. It looks visually, it looked amazing visually. It's just, I don't know how the story's gonna run, because Pete Pride's not supposed to be the one sending people back in time, but they can do what they want.
Are you guys disappointed it's not Kitty Pryde? I'm a little disappointed. I'm disappointed.
Yo, Bryan Singer loves Wolverine. Don't y'all know this? All his movies is about Wolverine. X-Men 1.
Like, as soon as they said they were going to make an X-Men movie, I knew Wolverine was going to be at the front of all of them. That's practically what happened with comics.
But you think about it, First Class, no Wolverine. Bryan Singer comes back.
Wolverine.
Look at his last two X-Men movies. The X-Men movie, Wolverine. X-Men 2, Wolverine.
Because he wants the movie to make money.
First Class made some money. He had a Wolverine. You got Fassbender in it. You focus on Wolverine.
I don't want to go see another one. They destroyed the Wolverine character in the last two films. They're horrible.
Did you like?
I like the Wolverine.
Did you think that there was a slight improvement from the Wolverine origin? Was it Wolverine
I
origin?
hate to say it, X-Men 2, the second one, they actually, when they were bringing that into that, they actually did a halfway decent job bringing the Weapon X and doing certain things like that. But when they brought in the next two films, it was might as well be, what was it, Ghost Rider 2 with If anybody watched that, you might as well just turn off the film. It was horrible.
Well, Derek, I know you expressed like a serious disdain for the X-Men franchise.
My feelings were hurt when I saw it.
What is it about it? You know what?
It's just terrible. I mean, look at it, compared to what you get with Avengers versus X-Men, and those are comparable because they're two team films, and a lot of people are right. Like the X-Men movies have turned into Wolverine and his friends running around. Whereas you look at Avengers, that's a true diverse cast where everybody gets to shine, everybody has their moment, everybody is unique and does their thing. In X-Men, it's like you get some eye candy a little bit, but they don't even make the characters that interesting. They reuse the same powers in every film. They haven't explored, a different look or anything. Maybe in X-Men Origins or whatever it was.
You mean First Class? First Class stands out, man.
Josh Whedon is an exceptional screenwriter.
And that was the genius of getting Josh because he knew how to simulcast better than anyone.
I would love to see his script for Wonder Woman that didn't get made. I mean, in fact, I know it's a Marvel panel, but doggone it, I want to see a Wonder Woman movie.
But DC can't even get a Wonder Woman TV show together.
What they do get together.
No, it wasn't that bad. That Adrian attack, it wasn't that bad. Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
Yo, let's be honest, there is no female-led superhero film out. So it's not a DC thing. It's an everybody thing.
No, but they're gonna. I understand. Marvel is gonna do either like Ms. Marvel. There's gonna be a Black Widow thing.
Captain Marvel and with Carol Danvers. That would be freaking awesome. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Well, there needs to be some, and this is another problem though, just in terms of superhero movies, because, and I see you standing there. I'm sorry. Because Hollywood doesn't understand superhero women, and it's like, well, we don't know if we can get men to go see this movie. It's like, are you kidding me? But that seems to be the problem. They just don't know how these movies are going to play. And somebody needs to tell them that the largest, fastest growing segment of comic book readers is women now, So, get with the program, because I would go see a superhero movie featuring a female superhero, I mean, and, well, I'm sorry, but that's.
No, and if they're paying attention, the Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel comics are freaking amazing, so.
Actually, there was a great interview with Aisha Tyler. She was talking about how she was desperately trying to pitch an action movie starring herself to Hollywood, and like they'll come up with any number of reasons to not do it, like a female action film. And one of the films that she pointed out was like, well, look at Kill Bill. Like, not only was Kill Bill a hit, it was a classic. And it's really about the material. It's cult classic. What's that? It's cult classic. Cult classic. It's still a classic, though.
It's classic. It made a gang of dough.
Classic.
It'll be about
Kill Bill? Come on now.
Kill Bill made plenty of money.
No, it's not that it made money. Everybody's seen it and everybody loves it. Yeah.
That's what is that a problem?
So that would make it a classic. That would make it a classic.
That's not the definition of cult classic.
Oh, it's built into it. But my question is, what do you think of Guardians of the Galaxy? Because Marvel is a little apprehensive and they're nervous about it because they're like, we're going into space and doing all that stuff. And like you said earlier, a collection of different people and everything. So I was wondering you guys' opinions on, do you think Guardians is going to be a flop or a success or?
Marvel?
I'm sorry, the who?
It's going to be good.
The Guardians? I don't see any Guardians I know. I don't see Martin X or Yondu or Charlie 27.
He talk about them old Guardians, though. He ain't talk about them 2004 Guardians.
Well, as someone who read the latest iteration of Guardians of the Galaxy when it first came out, which is a 5 years ago maybe, very good comic when it first came out, or they rebooted it, I guess you could say. But I think it's going to be a success because it's funny and
Talking
pretty
Raccoon.
amazing.
It's a great idea around not doing a Fantastic Four movie to lead into like Thanos or whatever.
But I agree. I think like Thor was Marvel's first big test. Like Iron Man was their first movie. They can make the movie. They can make it good. Thor is a blind guy running around with a hammer who's a Viking god and he used to hit a stick on the ground to turn into Thor. And I thought
they actually introduced another element to that made it look even more crazy. Is that they're actually aliens? You know,
Yeah.
they introduced that science fiction element to it, so they made it even crazier than it would have been just sticking to the mythology aspect of it. So it really pushes the disbelief there.
Yeah, but they passed the test.
Right.
And yeah, they did make what you call magic, we call science, so
Right.
absolutely, that's the line that sealed that. But yeah, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is the second biggest test, because it's not, nobody knows Guardians of the Galaxy like they know Spider-Man, or Batman, or any other major character that's a staple in comics, like Superman. But, I think they're gonna pass.
Are you guys excited for the Galaxy?
I wish them luck. I hope you all enjoy it.
No, I was actually busting on it. I'm gonna go see it. That doesn't mean, just because I don't see it. And actually, I think Yondu is in it. You know, I saw some stuff. The guy who played Merle. Yes.
Michael Rooker is
Michael
Yondu.
Rooker, yeah, Yondu. So, you know, it's a nod.
Let's get back to the problems of Marvel. So, like, are you guys at all excited about the new Spider-Man 2? Yeah. Like,
Wait, somebody's seen it?
well, yeah, have you referred to the trailer? All the trailers.
Oh yeah, they got like 80 of them, right? And they tell you everything that happens.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then it came out already, so
It's already out in the UK.
yeah, you know, I don't understand why UK eat before us, man. It's our stuff, man.
It's a different market.
How come we don't get Doctor Who before them then? You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm actually disappointed.
Wait.
Yeah, it's been years and years of that. There's a huge foreign market now. I was a little disappointed we didn't get Captain America first. I thought that was a little jacked.
It's America. You know what I'm saying? They hating on their own country.
But whatever.
Well, no, I actually.
So that's a lot to do with the
Yes,
virus.
no, I know the answer to that. It's because of the change in terms of the DVD sales. Because the studios used to make a lot of money off of that, and now they don't. And so they rely more heavily on the foreign releases and the foreign gross. And that's why they're like, hey, we put it out over there. Because, I mean, we're going to see it anyway, you know? So you put it out over there first, and you start making money overseas, and then you release it here, you know? So.
And that's taken time, because it saved a couple of films. My favorite movie of 2013 was Pacific Rim.
Love that movie.
Only because of China and the world market, they ate it up. We forgot about it, we forgot it came out.
I lost the grown-ups too.
Cause we ain't about that robot life over here. We ain't about that life.
No, that's probably not doing.
Yeah, man.
I'm sorry, you were talking about something else.
I do talk about it in Spider-Man. Like, I was just like curious, like, your guys' thoughts about it thus far. Like, the reboot.
I hated that movie.
Garfield, and then the sequel's coming out.
Hated that
Hated it, yeah.
Hated that movie.
I have no desire to see it.
Oh, okay, I'm actually excited for it. I don't mind Andrew Garfield at all. I think he's a better Peter Parker,
I
actually.
think it's actually really good Peter Parker, actually.
It's all right, I
This is a great cat. That's not the problem.
I don't see no struggle in that Spider-Man.
The living color thing. I mean, I wasn't crazy about the fact that there was a reboot, but, you know, I wanted to see it. I mean, and I wasn't crazy about Andrew Garfield's hair, honestly, you know, and Aunt May keeps getting younger and younger, you know, is the other thing. But, I mean, ultimately, it was okay, and I liked seeing the lizard. I mean, he was scary, and I really liked Gwen, because, you know, I'm like, well, wait, you know, Mary Jane, but where's Gwen? And the kind of, you know, sneaky way they put her in Spider-Man 3, and, you know, but it's like, no, but Gwen was, and if you really want to make Spider-Man Spider-Man, then you have to have Gwen, and they had to do what they did with Captain Stacy, and Gwen has to meet her fate the way that it happened in the comics, and, you know, that's part of what makes him a more vulnerable type of hero.
He died too early.
Huh?
He died too early. They killed Captain Stacy too early. That was just poor script writing. You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree that they killed him too early.
They didn't earn any death in that movie. I ain't even gonna get on that. Oh, I hated that movie. I spent $18 on that movie.
I'm curious how you guys come up with your opinions on the movie. Like, I know that I sometimes get rid of, you know, canon to enjoy a movie based on its own merits, and then some other times you know, like, they just feel like, I feel like X-Men, they go so haphazard, they just like, you know, have a hopper and they just go ahead and pick random mutant names out, like, we're gonna put this person in the movie, and we're gonna display some power. Like, my biggest concern is that the first 5 minutes of X-Men are gonna be big battle sequence, and then the next 55 are gonna be Wolverine and his buddies, you know, in the 70s. So, I mean, I'm curious how you guys define your...
You just read the movie.
Yeah, you just spoiled it for everyone.
You know, come up with your opinions on movies, because, like, you know, you say you didn't like Spider-Man, but I know I saw Captain America in like IMAX 3D in Silver Spring, and the preview for 3D Spider-Man 2 is going to be bananas. Like,
It looks amazing.
It will be the most amazing use of 3D and high definition technology, I think, that's ever been used in film.
So you like what informs our
I mean,
Do you use them cameras?
Like the story, I mean, sure. I mean, the story can be flat, whatever, but I'm not going to enjoy the movie regardless of what is going to happen.
Well, that's a good point you brought up. Like Sony is a technology company that happens to own a studio. That is one of their profitable arms. And they're really good about pushing that technology with their latest movies like 4K or whatever. But I thought bad about Spider-Man just because, I thought they rebooted it too soon. I'm not a big fan of Andrew Garfield, Peter Parker. He's a perfectly fine actor. He's a great actor. But I try and go to every movie I see with a fresh slate, if you will. And I know like some things in comics aren't going to work on screen, and been watching comic movies for 10 plus years now. I can understand why. And if a movie's not good, I'm not going to like it. And that's the crappy thing about it. Not only is it not a good X-Men movie, it's not a good movie in certain cases. And that's why I try to think about it. And it would be nice to see everything as it is in canon, but realistically, some stuff doesn't work on a big screen the way it does in comics. I think that space is getting narrower and narrower, and thanks to Marvel, they're proving how narrow it can be. But there are storytelling limitations to movies that you don't have in comics, and that's something important to remember. Like X-Men, it's hard to do because we're talking about 60 years of new characters and different story arcs, and they have the luxury of cherry picking. But when they do that, you have to cook it right as well. You can't just take a bunch of ingredients and slap them together, which is what they did with, for instance, Wolverine Origins. I just thought it was a terrible film. Yeah, it was a bad Wolverine movie too, but it was stupid. The way they went about making that movie, the choices they made, like he gets out of the Weapon X program and he runs into an old couple in the middle of Canadian woods. No. It was cheap laughs and everything else. But I try to go with a fresh slate, and that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, to that point, X-Men First Class, I had some really bad preconceptions of that film because nothing in it looked right. It was like the chronology, it didn't fit with the older movies, it didn't fit with the canon, so the fanboy in me was reeling. But then I went and saw it, I sat through it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Because even though it didn't get the minutia of the canon right, I felt that it got a lot of the spirit right, and really had its own internal logic, and it made sense. And I had fun with it. So I feel like maybe not a strict adherence to canon, but maybe capturing the spirit of the property sometimes is enough. And just having fun seeing the film, enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, first I just want to make the distinction that I can be entertained by a movie that isn't necessarily a good movie. So, sometimes it's like, okay, I know this was a lousy movie, but I had fun with it. And then actually, conversely, there'll be movies that are actually very well made that I'm just not crazy about. But in terms of the way that I evaluate comic book movies, first thing is, does the character look like in the comic books? Second thing is, did they get the story right from the comic book? So a lot of it is, how faithfully the original material has been interpreted. Now, and the problem with that is, especially with DC, but the problem is that you've got 50 plus years of history to cherry pick from. And so for the first movie, a lot of the time they'll go, kind of back and, but then the second movie, invariably, they take more from the first movie than from the existing history. And that's one of the reasons why I think that they're at least going in the right direction with this new Spider-Man film, because it seems like there's less that's based on the first movie, and they've kind of gone and, okay, well, here's the Rhino, and here's the Green Goblin.
No more organic web shooters.
Yeah, the organic web shooters was crazy. But for me, it's all about how well and how closely what has been in the comic book has been interpreted.
Man, I go into a movie, the blank slate. I'm getting to the point where I don't even watch trailers. I look at who's cast, I look who's directing, I look at the filmmakers, and I just hope in the end that they make a good film. Now, after I sit in the theater for 2 hours, if I don't think they hit the marks, I don't think they told a good story, I don't think they shot it well, and if the acting is not on point, then it's not a good movie. Like, to be quite honest, I guess that's the main thing when I start watching Marvel movies, is just that, like, I can't just go and watch one movie and get pleasure. I gotta, like, try to keep in my back of the mind like 6, 7 other movies to know what's going to happen. So when I see the next movie, it's all connected. And I just kind of want to I just want to see a film and be entertained and get something out of it and move on to like the next thing. And that's what I take for all movies. I just try to use superhero movies as any other movie. I rate them all the same.
Yes, sir. I don't know if this is a question or an opening statement, but is it safe to say that regardless of whether the movie is going into continuity or if it's a standalone movie, if the screenwriter or whoever's behind the movie don't get the very essence of why this hero is here or why this hero is on the screen, that is what makes the movie. Like, for example, like you asked earlier which Spider-Man was the best one, and I think the consensus was that Spider-Man 2 was. And in my personal opinion, Spider-Man 2 was probably the best one because it was the one that embodied the whole with great power comes great responsibility. There was a huge sacrifice in that Spider-Man film, just that one. The rest, I don't see it. Same thing with X-Men. There's never a scene, well, besides United, there's never a part in there where I feel like this is a race of people who are persecuted and they're disrespected and prejudiced against just because they were born that way. You know what I mean? So I guess that's where the question mark comes in. Is that what deters people away from the superhero genre? If you do not capture why this person is that person, people read Spider-Man because maybe they were picked on as a child. People read Superman because they idolize that strong father figure, that guy that does what he does. People look at Cap because you're the selfless guy. You're the guy who puts everything that he believes in before him. That's why the first Avenger, in my opinion, that's one of the best scenes in first Avenger. At the end, when Shield apprehends him at the end, and they're like, "What's wrong, Cap?" He's like, "I had a baby." You put everybody before him. So is that what you really are subconsciously going to the movie to go see? Is that what it is? The essence of the superhero.
Everyone likes a hero story. That's why we keep telling the hero story. So that's the superhero story is the same as we care about the story of Hercules or Achilles or Robin Hood. It's the same thing. We still want those same goals. They just like any movie, they have to tell that story well. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. For you.
Well, I think that goes back to what Ulysses was saying a minute ago about them rehashing stuff, and The Dark Knight Rises rehashed stuff from the first movie. And I was like, why do I care about what is it, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? League Shadows. I mean, Batman beat them already, supposedly pretty well, and it was an interesting twist, but I was like, I would much rather seen Nolan's Penguin or something. Something different.
He was just trying to make an ending.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff, it's modern mythology. It isn't just heroes. It's got to be larger than life.
But that's what a hero is, Ulysses. Those are heroes.
Not necessarily. Sometimes a hero can just be like a regular guy. These characters that we're talking about they're like gods on Earth.
I feel you, but even those old tales are heroic tales.
Yeah, but Robin Hood was a
like Ulysses. Yeah, and Robin Hood was dope.
Yeah,
like Ulysses is a hero. He's just a regular dude. He's a king.
But Spider-Man's also Spider-Man because he can crawl on walls and he's got super strength. There's got to be something story about the character, but that's part of what I get to see movies.
I'm sure right at one time, so I'm going to go ahead and let this lady ask the question.
Okay. I was the other person in North America who liked and saw and liked Pacific Rim.
we got 5 here.
And one of the things I really appreciated about it was it was fun. It had an international cast. I didn't recognize anybody particularly, and it was a real mix-up of characters, people of all different ethnic backgrounds, and obvious mashup, which I really hope is going to become more normal. And and less exceptional. It was obvious to me that it wasn't just for the English language. There was enough cut away from the mouths moving so that you could substitute Chinese or whatever in it. Is your sense, I'm hoping that this will become, like I said, more normal. Do you have any sense of that going forward?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And international market is the future. You know, and I remember it was the BRIC countries of Russia, well, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And they were saying, don't translate your movie to French, translate it to Portuguese and Russian. Because it's hard to